I'm going to just make a new layer here, just so that it's not all in the same place. Oh, I might have to make the object first before I can make a layer. So we're going to go down here to the side where there's an A, and you see it says Text Tool. And what the Text Tool does is it allows you to take a font, write something out, and then use the written out letters as the lines and dots of your drawing, without ever losing the fact that it is text, which means that you can make lines and drawings that look like letters and change them at will, like you were using a word processor, right? So if we go down to an empty area of the screen here, I'm just going to pick this area here. I'm going to select the Text Tool, and you can see the top bar changed entirely, right? It has all your typical stuff, the font, what styling, what size, what unit, all the stuff, right? And so let's make this into something that's big enough for us to see. Let's just put 144, right? And I'm going to click anywhere on the screen and you'll see a long line. This is basically the cursor where your letters are going to come out. And if you were to type letters, they would show up right in the screen here. Okay, you can see that they're being typed right on top. And you can type out anything you want. So let's say robots are fun. And this is a little bit big, so I'm going to make it a little bit smaller so that we can see. So this is in 60 points. And if we were to press escape, let's click the selection button. This way it turns off our text tool and it turns this into a path. So now this is text, but the text can be manipulated as a path and dots. So this text is still a text object. You can see over here that it's a T. That's how you can tell it's a text. If you go up to path and click object to path, it will turn anything that you've imported, a shape, a line, a squiggle, whatever, into lines and dots. And it's subtle, nothing's really obviously changed, but if you look over here at the side, there's a path shape now. It's not a T anymore. And that means that if you were to click on any of these things, it's now a path. That means that you can also manipulate it like a path, right? So if you want to do some funky letters, this is a really quick and easy way to do that, right? And that just kind of goes to show you the capability of this program. Even though that this is a path right now, there's no reason why this couldn't be put back into a text form, so I think convert to text is a thing. I don't know how this works. This might not do what I expect. But the idea here is that you can always keep this text and recreate it when you need it. So the text tool is fun. The text tool lets you do all sorts of interesting things too, like put text on a path. Let's see, put on a path.
You said it was object to path, right? Or
Object to path, yes. That's when the text is selected.
Yeah, I don't know if I did something.
So here it is again.
Let's see here, hold on.
So this is a text item. You can see there's a T there.
Right.
And while it's selected, I'm going to go up to path, and then object to path.
Okay.
And now you can see it as a path icon. And there's nothing that's changed here, but if I double click on it, you can now see the paths.
Ah, I just said double click and I clicked it once.
Double clicking will automatically select the node tool because it knows it's a path. So if you are here, you can also click on the node tool and it will bring up the same thing as double clicking on it. Double clicking will basically allow you to open the most likely tool you need to do whatever it is that you want to do on that object. And in this case, because it's just a naked path, it will assume you want to play with its nodes. So it gives you the node tool. All right, so beneath the node tool, we have a bunch of shapes. And they do exactly what you expect them to do. They make shapes. So if you grab a square, you can make a square. If you grab a circle, you can make a circle. If you grab one of these polyhedral tools, polygon tool, you can select the number of corners it's supposed to have, and you can make an octagon or a decagon. So you can make many pointed shapes with this tool. There's also a 3D tool. So if you wanted to do interesting things like making cubes, you could make a cube. And you can't really see the other side at the bottom of the cube, but if we do go higher on the screen, you can see that it figures out 3 dimensions that we're in, and we can adjust the 3-point perspective to be whatever it is that we need it to be. So 3D is nice, right? And then spirals. Everyone needs a spiral,
Oh,
right?
spirals are awesome.
So this is just a spiral path, right? But you can decorate this just like anything else. Okay? It's worth noting that every single thing that you create has the icon of the tool that it came from up here, so you can kind of tell what it is and how it was made. All right? So those are fun. Let's see what else we have. We have a pen tool. The pen tool is a way to make paths that are naked. That is, if you don't want to make a full square, you can just make lines with the pen tool. See? And the lines are paths with the handles built in. So, let's try this again. Let's take the pen tool, everyone select the pen tool, and click once. You'll get a single point. That is a square. Okay? And you'll see that there's a red line following. It's telling you that it wants to make the segment at the point that you click next. So if I move the mouse over and I click again, now it has made a line with another point, right? And you can do this as many times as you want, and it'll happily make that line for you, just clicking a single time at each point. Now, when you click this time, do not release the mouse, but click and drag. Something interesting happens. You'll see handles pop out of it, and now you can adjust the direction of that line coming out from that point, right? And you can do this as many times as you want. And this is how you make curves. So this is the same handle that we were looking at over here when we were playing around with the lines of the D here, right? And so that handle can be curved by clicking where you want it to be and then directing the curve in the way that you want it to be directed. All right? And so you can do all sorts of crazy stuff by just creating this line and dragging the curve wherever it is that you want it to be. Now you might be wondering, I can't stop making this line. How do I stop? Well, if you click on the dot that you started from, it will close it as a closed object, right? But maybe you just want the line by itself. You can double click and it will stop the line wherever you click, right? You'll see that the start and end points have a square. So if I were to take the node tool, you can see these points. Actually, select the pen tool so you can see the start and end. If you select the node tool, you'll see all of the points, but we only want to see the start and end, which you'll see with the pen tool. With the pen tool selected, you can click on any of these and continue the path from where you left off. So if I wanted to close this up, now I can close it just by connecting the two ends that were shown in the square. And if I close the object, there will be no squares to be clicked because there are no ends of the line. So that's the pen tool. The pen tool lets you make lines, objects, connect them together, and manipulate the curves around them. The pencil tool is much more stupid. The pencil tool is directly beneath the pen tool, and it doesn't give you any fine control. It literally just puts a line anywhere you put that pencil while the mouse is pressed. So if I draw while my mouse is pressed, it will just make a long line. And as soon as I let go of the mouse, it will stop. Right? There's no smarts. There's no like, I'm going to keep the line open, nothing. I can do stuff to move it around. Like I can take this end and I can continue drawing the line from that. But if I wanted to move these ends, I would have to take either the pen tool and move it, or no, actually I think the node tool is what you have to use. See, that'll let you move the end where it needs to be. But what's interesting is that the pencil tool gives you a ton of these lines, right? If I were to take the pencil tool again, excuse me, and make a new line. And then go and select the node tool again. There's a whole bunch of these points. And it's going to make a point at each place where it needs a new equation based on how erratic you're drawing. So if I'm drawing a really, really straight line with a pencil, then I don't need that many points. And you see it only gives me a few. But if I draw a really crazy line, and then I select the node tool, it's going to have a million dots because it needs a new dot to draw each new part of that segment. All right. All of the other tools down beneath it are kind of bonus. They don't give you a whole lot that's necessary, but they do have certain situations where they're useful. So let's start underneath the text tool. We see a gradient, I think is what it's called. Yep, gradient tool. The gradient tool, as what the name sounds like, is a change in color between 2 points. So this is how you get blended colors, like something that fades from red to blue. If we wanted to do that, say for this entire object, we would select the object here, click the gradient tool, and then select the gradient that we want to use. So let's go to the gradient tool and select a gradient by, I think it's here, yep. So fill and stroke, fill. I'm going to select this gradient here. And now you see a little spectrum, and you see 2 arrows. These arrows are the anchors for where the gradient starts and ends. And on the arrow is the color that it is transitioning through. So you see here, this is gray. I can change it to yellow. I can add extra stops, and I can make each of these things a different color. And it will cycle through all of those colors at the anchors that I set. You can adjust the anchor here, and you can adjust the anchor up here, and it has the same effect. You'll see that across the top here, there's a bunch of different icons, and you can have different types of gradients. This is a linear gradient. This, I forget what it's called, but it's like a starburst or something. It is a radial gradient, if I remember right. What is this called? Yeah, radial gradient. So you can see it radiates out from the center. Here's a checkerboard, I think. Mesh gradient. Ooh, mesh gradients are cool because you can have gradients that fluctuate between different parts in the screen, and you can change them to make it look like a wavy flag, for example, right? If you have a flag that's pretending to float in the wind, you could use a mesh gradient to give that effect. So just to give you a quick example, here's a flag with the mesh gradient, and we can pick a fill. I don't remember how to define the mesh gradient for us. Use the mesh tool to modify the mesh. That's this. Here we go. So we can reduce the number of rows and the number of columns. And then you draw it basically when it's selected. You select it, and then I think you can manipulate it. Man, I haven't played around with the mesh tool very much, but it's fancy. It lets you do some very fun stuff. I'll have to play with this and get back to you guys on how this stuff works. But like I said, it's advanced, and it allows you to do interesting gradients that are not just linear or radial. And the mesh gradient tool has its own tool underneath the gradient tool. So you can see it says mesh tool here. Okay. Here's the eyedropper. The eyedropper is literally just for picking colors. So if you have an image and you're trying to match the color exactly, you can use the eyedropper, and you can click, and whatever you click on, it'll update it down here at the bottom. Shift click to set stroke, click to set fill. All right, so if we want to take the stroke, we hold down Shift and click, so you can see that updated here. And if we want to update the fill, we just click, and that'll update here. And you can see as you're hovering over the image, there's a little square that's next to the dropper, and it'll tell you exactly the color that you're selecting. So you can kind of get a preview. without having to zoom in and find exactly the color you need. Okay, so the eyedropper is good for color matching. The paint tool will take an object and give it whatever color it is that you click on. So if I want all of this beige, it'll give me that. Let's see, if I want to do blue, it'll give me blue. And you can see that it's kind of changing gradually. That's because it's applying layers of paint. And if we go to look at the layer, I think we'll be able to see the paint being added. Yep. Every time I click on it, you see it's creating a new path. So even the paint fills are literally creating rectangles that match the size of the thing I'm painting into with the color that I want to paint it as. All right? So the paint tool is really useful for creating interesting shapes. Like if I wanted a paint color that looks exactly like this N, I could click the N, get the selection tool, and then pull that off. And now I have a filled object that matches exactly the shape that I dropped the paint tool into. Okay? Here is the nudge tool, the tweak tool as it's called. The tweak tool has lots of different modes. If we hover over this, move objects in a direction, move objects towards the cursor, move objects in random directions, shrink objects or enlarge objects, rotate objects, duplicate objects. Here's how you can make certain objects move in a path. So this is a good way to do interesting things like shift stuff around without having to move each and every single thing individually. So I'm going to click the one that lets you move everything together. And I'm going to see, yep. So I selected all of these things in the Dirty Mechanics layer. And now I can slide my mouse across it and it will push away everything that gets in the way of my mouse. And if I increase the force, it'll push it away even harder without me having to be, as gentle about it, for example. But this is good for doing things like manipulating a bunch of images uniformly. So let me undo this a little bit. This I picked to shrink towards the cursor. I'm going to make this really strong. And if I click this, it will collect everything up to my mouse that I hover over. Right? So the tweak tool is good for just doing large manipulations in a uniform way. The spray tool lets you select stuff and print it as many times as you want. So you can see I have this whole thing selected. The spray tool is literally allowing me to paint the whole shebang over and over and over again. So if there's something that you know that you want to edit, or something that you want to duplicate, let's say for example, let me delete all of this stuff. And if I zoom in and get the selection tool and select these letters here, I'm just going to get the blue letters for now. And then I click the spray can. Now I have that as a spray that I can use to print stuff. For some reason it didn't give me the letters. Let me try that again. Alright, so I've got the letters, now I've got the spray tool, and now you can see I can print all the shadows that I want of 3932 that I ever needed to. So if I want to do something crazy and do like shadows coming off of the top of that, that's what the paint tool is good for. The eraser does exactly what you expect it to do. It erases stuff, but only in the layer that you have selected. So if I have white, if I have this selected here and I do erase across there, you can see it erased everywhere where that line was. There's a connector tool that connects paths that are separate into one path. You have a ruler. It does exactly what you expect. It measures stuff. You have a magnifier tool. That's the same as the zoom. So if you select around a certain object, you can zoom in on it. And then I think this is duplication. Pages, no, pages, that's for organizing stuff. So sometimes you might need to print something out into a layout for proofing or whatever. That's what the pages is for. You'll probably never use that. Those are all the main tools. There's not much to the program aside from playing around with it, understanding the tools, and figuring out what the individual things mean and what they do. But once you understand that, you get very far, and the individual tools altogether give you a very powerful capability to manipulate this image. That's the tutorial that we're going to go over together here. I hope that this was helpful to everyone. Inkscape is a powerful program, and there's lots of capabilities there, but really it is just a collection of smaller, simpler tools that work together in a very powerful way.